Now, in my video today, we're going to be fixing up the engine mounts. We've got some spare bolts, good quality zip ties, and some fresh fuel line, so we can replace all of this. But the first step will be getting the chain out, because it's all bound up in there, and well, there's nothing I can do with a bound up chain anyway. But it should be fairly easy to fix. Is all we've got. You've got an idea. What's your idea, Link? You're going to find me some tools, are you? Well, do you know what? I just happen to have all my tools right here.
Yep. Well, one tool.
Yes, and I think he's finally distracted. Alright, so the first job will be to take the clutch cover off and disentangle the chain.
I didn't find a tool.
Didn't find a tool?
No.
What have you got there?
I did it.
A stick. What do you use the stick for?
For grass.
Use the stick for grass? How does that work? Show me. Like that. Now you're playing drums.
Do you want to play drums?
Yes. Let me play drums. Blech. Are you my apprentice? I have to say, I don't think my bike motor likes being drums.
No.
But that's about how I fix it.
Yep.
Right, so I don't have any way to mount the camera. And I could use the little $40 camera. But let's face it, the image quality is not fantastic. It's not really good for close-up sort of work like this. Anyway, it's better for its wide-angle scenery shots. Alright, so I can't do this one-handed, so I'm going to put the camera down and we'll record again when we're done. So we've got our 3 clutch cover bolts out. Let's have a look at the damage in there. Oh, look at that, there's bits of leaves in there that would be leftovers from the trail ride. So let's just slide our...
A trail ride?
Yeah, I went on a trail ride.
Oh, we were.
Alright, what we can do is pop the clutch in, which I just realised now is absolutely silly because the clutch lever's here and it's not even attached. So let's go back to basics. If you need to turn the engine over, two things. First of all, take your spark plug out. Alright, so to turn the engine over, first thing we need to do is remove our spark plug. This relieves the compression in the cylinder head. Let's have a look at that. That is a lovely colour. It's a little bit oily. That's because I upped the oil ratio, not quite 20 to 1, not quite 16 to 1, but halfway in between, because this is a new bottom end and a new piston, so you have to go through the break-in process. So, using that spark plug removal tool.
Oh, hi, Nathan.
Oh, hi, Linky.
It's going over to up here.
Really?
Yep. And you, that's fine.
So what we're going to do, this would work better if I wasn't trying to do it one-handed, but the theory is the same. Excuse my camera work. Right, so this will work better with the longer screwdriver with better leverage. But alright, I have to put the phone down to do this. Alright. Give it a little tap, tap, taparoo to get it seated on there properly, because I just could not do that one-handed. And I've got a little bit of movement in there. Hang on, hon. But the chain is bound up against the case there pretty tightly. So I am going to need two hands for this job, just because I can't. I'm going to end up pushing the bike over. My hands are dirty, greasy. Alrighty, so I did pop my spare removal tool in there. I really can't do this two-handed. I really would have liked to have been able to film that process. The chain is out. I just could not do it one-handed because there is a fair amount of pressure in that cylinder. But basically, you just turn that with a screwdriver in the end to help with the leverage, and it just turns right out. Now, we're just examining the sprocket here. Come on, focus camera. There's a bit of grease on the lens because my hands, unfortunately, I wasn't very careful. Let's have a bit of flashlight. Alright, that's better. I've got the light on there now. So I was having a bit of a look to make sure that little sprocket in there wasn't damaged. I did notice on that chain a few of the links where it got bound up were particularly munched, because this chain is not brilliant quality stuff. Let me try and get in there. Focus. No, we're not going to be able to show you very well. But as far as I can tell, it was the master link on this chain that let go. Obviously I haven't had a good chance to go through it, so I'm doing all of this one-handed, but it does appear... No, I'll be damned. I assumed it was the master link because that is generally the weakest point in a chain, but beneath all that dirt and grime and grease, there's our master link, which you always make sure you put that on with a round end pointing into the engine, because normally if a chain's going to let go, it's because you've got the link on backwards, and that lip there is caught on something and popped it off, which I've always been on top of that. So the fact that we've still got a master there, that'll become my spare. Now I have got a new chain to put on. However, I may have to steal a few links because I already shortened that chain trying to fit it onto the go-kart, but obviously it's much too narrow. Now, despite the engine binding up and the chain snapping, this stayed exactly where I bolted it down. There are a lot of hate for this kind of chain tensioner because there have been complaints that, oh, they've been pulled into the spokes and they've destroyed the wheel. If you're careful when you're doing your setups and you do it properly, you make sure everything's tight, you've got your spring washers in there. Extra security, you can use lock nuts. Now I just use the ones that came with the kit. It hasn't moved. It has not moved at all, except for when I've loosened it up and moved it myself. Now I've said this in a previous video, but you have got to give these chain tensioners the kick test. The kick test is where you can give it a good solid kick and it doesn't move. I mean, if you can kick it and it moves, then this engine's got a hell of a lot more pulling power than your own 2 feet. So if it moves when you kick it, it will definitely move when the motor's going and you hit a bump or you have what I had happen. I'm very full on about the chain tensioners and the safety because of how many videos I've seen where people have complained about using them. They've gone to using the spring tensioners off here, which are a great idea. But considering I have not had one single issue using this because I paid attention to the people who know better than me, gave it the solid kick test, made sure it didn't move, I have not had a single problem with it. And until I do, I'll swear by it. Do your jobs properly and nothing bad will happen. I say this ironically because after my big ride, I went over the head bolts, the exhaust, the carburetor. I checked the U-bolt tension, made sure the exhaust hanger was tight. I checked the brakes. I even replaced the rear brake pads. What I did not check was these tiny little bolts in here. I just thought they're snug, they're not going to move anywhere, they'll be fine. The universe laughed at me and proved me wrong. So when you are going over your bike after a big ride, before a big ride, you've got to remember to check everything. I like to fly by the seat of my pants. I sort of fix things as I see them. The smart way to do things is create a checklist. Mark everything off as you go. Start with the head bolts, go onto the exhaust, check the carburetor, check the clutch, check the throttle, check the rag joint, check the tensioner. I'm not going to list off every little thing that needs checking here, but you get the point. You can run it off the top of your head, but when you're actually doing it, it's easy to get distracted and forget. I've said it before, you just can't be too careful. Were you cutting grass with my pliers again? Yeah, you know that's not what they're for, right?
That's swimming water.
Is that right?
Yep.
Was that shark swim in water?
Yep.
Okay.
You're a new fish.
Oh. Righty, so we've taken the engine off the bike frame. It looks rather empty now. A brand spanking new extension cord, because we're going to have to go and drill these out. As you can see there, the bolts have actually sheared, not come unscrewed magically past the frame like I was saying originally. Should have known they just snapped. They're notorious for doing that, and I know for next time I get a new engine, the first thing I'll be doing is making the extra effort to get the studs out and just replacing them with high tensile bolts, because you can't have this happening. Right, anyone else having this problem? This is an easy out. Here's one I prepared earlier. Bunnings prepared earlier. So it's just designed to be twisted out with a spanner or vice grips. It's reverse thread. So what we've got to do is drill a pilot hole smack bang in the middle of the snapped bolt. Now that should just wind in. I gave it a very, very gentle tap with a hammer just to seat it in. And then you just get to work turning anti-clockwise. Oh, and also if you're drilling on your motor, make sure you plug your ports. Nothing will destroy your motor quicker than metal filings in the piston. So this is one of those jobs that I can't do one-handed, but it is that easy. Ta-da! So the universe hates me. That side worked perfectly. This side, broken easy out. My drill has barely made a dent in it, and look at the mess that I've made. That's not coming out anytime soon. Alrighty, quick announcement time. Meet Mark IV. This was just delivered to me this afternoon. Very, very excited. These frames are particularly rare down under. We can't just walk in and pick them off the shelf at the local supermarket because they're just not that popular down here. So I paid a small fortune for this one, second hand. I've got a new motor kit coming in the mail. Hopefully it's here within the next couple of days and I can get started. So very, very, very excited to get that one going.